and welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known for over 40 years now as the Money Lady, both locally, nationally, and internationally. And I am delighted to be a part of your world for the next hour as we delve into a subject matter that has been on my heart very heavily. And I am going into the deep, as we would say right now. This is part one of a two-part series on financial survival, 24, 25, and thereafter. The reason I chose to put this on television is because I wanted to get the widest venue possible and not just do it in small seminars, which I am doing right now. And it's been very impactful. But this particular segment, and it is, again, this is a two-part segment series on financial survival. And so I want you to just settle down. No matter where you're viewing this show, just know that this is my heart's expression to all of you as the Money Lady. I'm going to cover some things that most advisors and analysts and people in my industry, the money industry, have not been open to sharing. But it's a big world. There are over 9 billion human beings on the face of the globe right now. We're dealing with, whether you're comfortable or not, major changes in the environment, climate change, governmental shifts, everything. I mean, just everything. The U.S. is $36 trillion in debt, and we keep right on printing that money. And so it's important that you, as my faithful viewers over the years, this show's been on for over 12 years in this particular venue, and prior to that, I was on other stations as well. That's not going to change. My commitment to using media powerfully to educate and empower you is not going to change. It's just not going to change. Everybody has the freedom to do podcasts and whatever they want to do. They have the freedom to do that. But I will tell you that I have been doing this platform for over 30 years. Yes. So I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And I'm not one that's prone to throw out garbage and give you garbage information. That's an offense. And actually in my industry, that'll get you in a whole lot of trouble. But the purpose of this boot camp and the purpose of this particular telecast and the second part, because I'm doing two for this show series, is to give you a couple of key things that you need to know. I'm going to give you during this series an understanding of where you fit in the capitalist system. You will discover your role and opportunities within the larger financial landscape. You will gain insights into how capitalism works. We'll also be looking at socialism and communism. This is not an emotional experience. This is about you understanding systems and how profit is generated and what it looks like on your personal balance sheet. How are you surviving? You're also going to learn where you are hemorrhaging. We're going to dive deep into why you cannot seem to park money and why you cannot seem to keep money. And as I share with people, money is a funny kind of thing. Money will leave you right in front of your face. It will leave you and go to somebody who's willing to be responsible. That's a real odd thing and characteristic of money. But believe me when I tell you that as you begin to look at why you're hemorrhaging, a lot of you will have to face up to some painful truths. And one of those painful truths is that you are a spend addict, spend junkie. You're trying to find love through money, And we're going to look at that, and I'm going to help you to pinpoint some of your financial leaks that can help you. You're going to learn how to cut and paste. In these times that we're in now, and I must be very open with all of you, because I'm not going to sit up here and paint you a picture of glorified success. 2024 and 2025 are going to be incredible years. It doesn't matter who's president. We as a nation are spinning out of control because of our fiscal irresponsibility, because of our unwillingness to deal with debt. Even God in His Word says, don't be in debt. When you're in debt to somebody, you have to answer to them. Ask anybody who's hounded by bill collectors. It's a real thing about that, and we're going to talk about how to cut unnecessary things, expenses, and begin to look at savings as a proactive activity. But you've got to come true to yourself. And then finally, if time will permit, I want you to explore the power of side gigs. That's money you're making outside of your W-2 job. And young people have just run with this. And they are truly making, for those that are hitting it through TikTok, Instagram, and other venues, these kids are making $10,000 to $20,000 a month. You may say, that's unbelievable. No, it's not. They've tapped into the power of media, like this show. You get X number of people listening to you. Advertisers want to tap into that. If you're in a position to sell things because of your viewership, that's cha-ching, that's money. And so I'm talking to people today more than I've ever around the power of cash, and that cash today is king. Look at the things that hold your interest. Look at the things that make you feel good, and then monetize it. Find out how you can benefit. Now, a lot of people are cooking. When cooking first started and it was on internet, on these different venues, people were like, oh, this is fantastic. I can learn how to cook this. I can learn how to cook that. That was all during COVID when people were at home. But a lot of these cooking chefs just blew up, and they are now doing incredibly well. They are making a lot of money teaching you how to fix a casserole. And you may say, how? The power of numbers. You got, again, globally, 9 billion humans. If you tap into just 1% of that 9 billion, and they are watching you faithfully, that's something that advertisers want to know. And if you start plugging a particular brand or product that people can order after listening to your show, here you go. Now, I'm going to say this because if you look at regular television, Good Morning America and others, they're always peddling stuff anymore. It used to not be like that. It used to not be like that. But it is today because there is a whole lot of money that can be made from people buying through those venues. So again, with time permitting, I'm going to talk to you about it because that's where the future is. The future is not in a 9-to-5. The future is you can start out with a 9-to-5 and you can build up your side gig or your side hustle, and then at some point say, goodbye, I'm doing my own thing. And again, I want to applaud young people, especially young people, because they have chosen to take the risk. Oh no, they've looked at us. They've looked at their parents. That's why you can't get them to work, because they're like, this is thankless. And you're like, but it pays the bills. And they will tell you there are other ways to pay the bills beside this. I don't want to work for somebody else. And I tell them, well, in the world that we're painting today, it's quite possible that you don't. But it takes a little bit of risk and management. So again, I'm going to try, with time permitting, to deal with that. But let's start with, what is the major problem facing every American family today? I don't care who you are. We are facing a money problem. And the money problem we're facing, whether you are affluent, working class, or just poor, money is still a problem. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about the facts, because I'm not going to get emotional about this. We are a rich nation in totality, a very rich nation. And in fact, it could be said that we are the richest nation on the face of this earth as a nation. But individually, there are tons of holes in the cracks, starting with debt. We are people that are literally drowning in debt. The data is that total household debt in the U.S. rose to $17.9 trillion for the first quarter of 2024, with credit card balances alone reaching a high of $1.03 trillion. And that's according to the Federal Reserve of New York. Yeah, the government knows exactly what you're doing with your money, and it translates to, we work to spend. And then we work to spend and to go into debt. And this is not tax deductible debt unless you are doing things for the benefit of your business, and that's a separate conversation. We're also a country where every wage earner has a tax problem. We work 2 to 3 hours a day just to settle up on our tax bill. That's shameful. For real. That is shameful, particularly when we are not willing to consider IRAs and tax qualified plans to reduce our tax benefit liability and to create an opportunity for us at retirement. Okay, because ultimately you are going to come out of this system, period. We are also dealing with limited income, although better, and when I say better, according to the Department of Labor, the average U.S. worker is making $59,000 a year. Now, among African Americans and Latinos, the numbers are even lower. But I'm going to be very open with you. And you can play the slots, you can play whatever. But at the end of the day, that data tells me we're not making any money. These are head games we're playing. We're not saving. Our savings rate, which is public information, was only 3.2% of our income. We have the lowest savings rate among the great industrial countries in the world, including Germany and China and other areas. We do not save. We spend and go into debt. And then we cry because debt is a dog. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I did not talk to you about inflation. And if you are a watcher of my show, you know that I've talked about inflation over the years, that this is coming. And what is inflation, simply stated, is just a measure of rising prices. Let me give you an example and give you a point of reference here, because it's helpful. Let's look at what prices were before 1960 and what they are today. For a two-door car prior to 1960, the average car price was $2,200. Today, in 2024, the average price is $48,200. $389. Whew! Can you afford a car? It's going to cost you. Well, I'll lease. Excuse me, leasing is renting. It's not your car, okay? What's the cost of public education prior to 1960? It was $850 a year. Can you believe that? Today, it's $21,035. That's for public education. Yick. And finally, a new home. The American dream personified. Before 1960, the average cost of a new home was $9,200. Today it's $495,100. Is it a wonder that young people can't afford to buy a home? Well, I got news for you. Old people can't either, because they sell their home and then they find out they cannot buy another home to replace it. Okay? These are some realities that we have to deal with. Another area that I'm talking about with money, and you all know how I feel about life insurance. Unless you plan on doing a GoFundMe, then life insurance is essential for your life. You're not going to live forever. But even beyond that, life insurance has living benefits, including the ability to tap into money for your kids' college, to pay off bills, all kinds of things. And yet the amount of Americans who have life insurance is dismal. Why? Well, I've had people tell me over the years the reason they don't buy life insurance is because their kids are going to take care of them. Well, I'm not trying to be mean about it, but that is really a very, very, very false assumption. Your kids are not going to take care of you, even if they could, because today it's just too hard trying to work with these jobs. I already gave you the data on income, and then they got kids and daycare, and that's so expensive. So in their forecast, you're not there. They expect you to take care of you. And that is just the truth. And the reality is, by the time you're 60, if you have not purchased life insurance, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. You're going to get restrictions. I don't care what the TV ads say. Insurance companies are not in the business of paying out money on anybody. You have to leave Earth unless you have plans that allow you to tap into other benefits, which I will talk about at another time. And then finally on retirement. Oh my gosh, I got to come out of here. This is what you say, I can't take it anymore. Trust me, your bosses can't either, because the young people are just having a tizzy about you being there. Okay, these are realities. But the real reality is that most Americans retire in poverty. They have less than $25,000 saved up. If a catastrophe occurs in their health, they're in trouble. And if I'm talking to you, you know I'm telling you the truth. You are in trouble. The mean, that's the average income for Americans 65 and older, works out to $4,190 a month. That includes your Social Security, your pension, your investments, if you have any. So the reality is, in the course of 40 years of working, where did your money go? Well, I know where it went. It went on everything but retirement. It went on vacations. It went on debt, paying debt. It went on kids, sending kids to schools that you couldn't afford to because you wanted them to feel special. And now they've come home because they are so special, they can't get a job. Trade schools are back in vogue. And I've always believed that the mechanic and the electrician, they don't negotiate their rates. You pay them if you want it fixed. It's a good job, a good source of income. But it does require work, which is, and it's physical work in many cases, as opposed to, head work, which is, let me figure this out. So that's where we are as a people right now. Money is the problem. And that's why I'm doing this financial boot camp, period. Because I want you to begin to look at this openly, honestly, and critically and begin to make changes right now. Don't give me any more excuses. Please, do not give me any more excuses. Please, I just can't, I can't take it anymore. Oh, I'm going to cry. Because this is crazy. But, Ben, would you go to the seminar outline so I can talk about those points, please? Next slide. There's our Financial Survival Boot Camp. Let's go to the next slide. The outline. Now, this is a two-part series. This part here, I'm going to be talking about, again, the global framework for financial survival, boots on the ground, the basics, which you may not know, but you are going to know today. And then it begins with self-discipline. Did you hear that? Self-discipline? Whoa. Did you tell me that's the way it's going to be? I'm telling you for purposes of this class that we're doing on television, self-discipline is everything. It'll make you do things that you don't want to do if you're just your wilder self. But the reality is we're going to cover these areas and we're going to get into them deep. Now, part 2, which is going to be behind part 1, I'm going to talk about how to control your spending, is your future secure, and side gigs if we have time. But as I said to you in the beginning, money is a problem for nearly every American consumer. Can we see that on the screen, Ben, if you have it? There it is. I've given you the data. It's okay to say you're a little bit scared because you don't have enough money at the end of the month. And if you are a renter, I know why you don't have enough money. Because rent is through the roof. And it shows no signs, unless there's federal intervention, of landlords giving anybody grace. Most of these apartment complexes are owned and controlled by mammoth corporations. And this is one of their, not side hustles, this is a major money-making hustle. And they have charged, the rents they charge, it's obscene. It's obscene. But I see no reason to believe that it's going to change. So, just as a side note, if you're renting a 2-bedroom, kindly rent a room out so that you can meet your monthly bill. Because if you're on a 1-year lease, you already know they're going to jack it up the next year. That's what they do. So at least if you have somebody else in there doing a shared thing, it will help. The mortgage and rent are the primary expenses for most people. And the inability to meet rent is a warning sign. Can they evict you? Yes, they can. Can you move back home? I don't know. Maybe, but not long term. Parents are not looking to do parenting again. Okay? They're not interested in raising your children. They've done that in many cases without consent. They've just done it to help. But I'm saying this as a, listen here, if you got a 2-bedroom and it's only one of you, you need to go on and get the other one occupied so that you can meet your bills. If you're doing a 2-bedroom because you have children, that's something different. You're going to have to look at your budget critically because children cost a lot of money and cause a lot of stress and anxiety. I mean, my God, if we knew then what we know now, many of you would have bailed out and just said, I'm just done. Tie me up, cut me up, sew me up, but I don't want any children. I'll take a dog. And maybe that's a better deal because a dog will love you if you're kind to it. It remains to be seen if children will be so kind as you deal with the stresses of life. But let's talk quickly about the global framework because I want to stay on point and on time and not run out of time. We have three economic systems. Capitalism, which is a form of money allocation where profit is king, and it allocates to the individual person, not to a group, not to a society. That is capitalism. Socialism, which is common in Sweden and Finland and other countries, essentially says that everybody works to take care of everybody, and there are specific benefits. It can be argued in the United States, a capitalist, profit-driven country, that Social Security is socialism. Why? Because we pay to get money. And it's an open system if you meet the qualifiers. So when people say, well, I don't like socialism, I tell them, well, turn in your check from Social Security. It even has the name in it, social. Now, communism, and we're most familiar with communism with Russia and China, People's Republic of China, operates under a very specified way of property and profit distribution. The role of communism is to ensure that everybody is taken care of. That means food, clothing, housing, Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the very base. Everybody needs food, clothing, and shelter. And under the communist form of profit, and by the way, they do make money too, but it's how that money gets distributed. China's got over 2 billion people. It's a communist country, but they have mastered capitalism. All you got to do is go on the internet and see Temu. That's a Chinese entity. That's a collaborative where they've all pooled their resources and are dumping stuff over here. And we're loving it because we don't understand their agenda is not only to feed their people, but to get all your information for future use. Our mindset, because we are so caught up into spending money and being in debt, which is I can get a shirt for $5. And I can't beat that at Walmart or anywhere. And I will say to you, because it's a communist country, they can do a $5 shirt. And they will, because your data is more important to them than the $5 shirt. And so your response is typically American. Oh, well, I don't really care about them having my information. And what can they do with it? Well, not to be facetious, but your data gives them tremendous leverage on a lot of things, including direct mail and other things that we take for granted. I get it when they say about TikTok being a venue for the Chinese to get our information. It is. You can't deny that. TikTok is great entertainment, fun, but ultimately you have to give up information. And that information is now in their database and not yours. So I understand why Congress is up in air, because that's creepy, particularly because they are communists. So you understand the three forms of government, and that has to deal with distribution of wealth. It has nothing to do with all the politics of, Putin or Xi Jinping. None of that. It's all about distribution and power. Please don't get it confused about it, because capitalism, of which this is our form of government, with democracy as the politics, which is you can vote democratically as opposed to communism and even parts of socialism. But make no mistake, there is no ideal anything, because humans are just humans. We're just nuts. Anyway, let's talk about the new way that money is being made and the fact that there's less and less dependency on our banking system, because they're moving to digital coins as we speak. Bitcoin is not going away. And the notion of you having money in the bank is starting to look more and more antiquated. It really is. That's an area you need to look at. Thanks to the power of Google, if they can sustain, because you know they're up under a federal lawsuit for monopoly, and if the truth be told, Google runs everything. And they pay billions of dollars to Apple and to Samsung and others to make sure it stays that way. But I'm saying to you, if you want to learn about this, take advantage of Google. It'll tell you everything. It'll lead you all kinds of rabbit holes. The power of internet. A decade ago, internet was a clunky looking computer with yellow and orange bars. I know because I had one, and I really thought I had it going on. Okay, today, the computer is your cell phone, and it's faster than you can think, and will answer all questions that Siri. Ask Siri a question. With the introduction of the new Apple, it's going to think for you. It's going to do communications for you. And maybe through the evolutionary process, maybe we won't have any lips because we don't need them with Siri. Making a mockery of it. Internet has changed everything. And it has made us dependent upon information that comes from that source. That doesn't make me comfortable, but that's where we are today. How we do business as a result of internet has totally changed. Your gas and electric company wants you to have an online account. Your telephone company wants you to have an online account. Your car payments, online. Your rent, in many cases today, online. Your bank account, savings account, investment account, online. And all that online activity is sustainable because of the electric grid. If the grid fails, you have no internet. You want to think about that? You need to think about that. That's not funny, okay? We've had grid failures. And as climate change progresses, we will continue to have more and more grid failures. So be careful, okay? Just be careful and protect yourself. Don't write everything on your phone, okay? Please don't. And yeah, they're looking. And why not? You don't own it, okay? Even if you buy your phone and it's paid for, you have to tap into internet to get power. And you got to plug the phone in periodically to the electric outlet or something equivalent, or else you won't have that. These are things that the global framework has forced upon us. And finally, here come the baby boomers, which is my generation. Oh, we're a handful. We are absolutely a handful. We have all the money for now. But that money has to go somewhere because we are going to die. And when we die, we're going to see the largest transfer of wealth this country's ever imagined. Yeah. Take it as a truth. When wealthy men die and their wives get the wealth, you know what she's doing in many cases. Look at Melissa Gates. Look at Miss Cook. All these people are getting wealth, and they're doing it the way they want to do it. Now, I'm going to tell you it's going to be interesting because it means that baby boomers are going to be doing it their way too. They changed the whole environment when we were growing up with hot pants and Pepsi and just everything. Everything. They're getting ready to change it again. Take a seat and watch this. So you got the young people dealing with influencers and making money and telling their stories. And then you got the baby boomers with the real money. And they're making decisions about how things need to happen. So let's shift to boots on the ground. Let's get back to the basics quickly because time is moving on. And that is where it starts. Who can I trust? Family takes center stage today. Everything is about family. You need to look at that and be conscious of that. They're pushing family. The only problem with this, who can I trust, is that in a whole series that the New York Times did several years ago, the number of people divorcing their families and their parents had gone through the roof. People did not want a family. They were dysfunctional, childhood trauma, parents drunks and alcoholics and drug abusers. Who can I trust? But I'm going to tell you, as I've said over and over again, you better find somebody you can trust, because you got too much stuff, and somebody has to be willing to stand in for you in the event that things go awry for you. That could be sickness, that could be a number of things. But you need to have someone you can trust, and my prayer would be, it would be your spouse, but I can't even bank on that anymore because the divorce rate is through the roof. Yeah. Baby boomers are like, I never liked him then, I really don't like him now, and I'm divorcing you. And so the question becomes, who can I trust? You think about that, and you begin to identify who you can trust. I've done a previous show on who can I trust. Go into YouTube and find the show. I've got a lot of information that I cannot cover in this time. Understanding the money rules. It's amazing how many people get sucked dry in scams. And I'm telling you why you fell for the scam. Because at a core level, you thought you could get something for nothing. And that's not the way it works, ladies and gentlemen. Money only has 4 functions. You can earn it. You can spend it. You can save it, or you can invest it. That's it. Money does not drop out of the sky, and money does not appear because you have a need. It has its own rules. But just remember, when you earn money and you do not spend it but save it, your return on your money is 100%. And why do I say that? Because there's a quirky little thing in the financial market called compound interest. Money makes money on itself. Isn't that something? So the problem we have with the U.S. government and all this debt is that the debt, which is money, is compounding, which is it's making money on itself, which means your balance gets higher and higher. Same thing with you. If you don't spend all your paycheck and just simply take out, I'll give an example. Take out $50 a month and just put it in a savings account every month like clockwork and see what your money will look like in 10 years. I know it works because I've got people that did it, and their testimonies are very, very powerful, which is, I didn't believe it. Money makes money on itself. Wish I could do that. But the power of compounding is what you must know. Money never sleeps. Doesn't matter. Compounding is all over the world. And you will see significant growth in your money if you just simply don't spend it and begin to save. And that's why I'm so big on budgets and all of that we'll talk about on our next show. And then finally, on the boots on the ground subject, the psychology of wealth. I've talked about this. You don't have to go to Tony Robbins. You don't have to go to a ton of people about this. If you are a negative person, money is going to run from you. Oh, by the way, you didn't know that money had legs? Money has legs and feet, and it'll move in the other direction. In the other direction. It will run from you if you are a negative person. Why? Laws of the universe. Negative attracts negative. Positive attracts. You say, well, I'm positively poor. And I'm here to say to you, you're positively crazy. Because you cannot have a positive mindset and move yourself in a place of activity and positivity and stay in poverty. It is impossible. That's a law. Do you hear that? Money never sleeps, and money is always looking to do better. Always. Even if it means leaving you, which it will do. It'll leave. Now let's talk about winning versus whining. Because along with a winning mindset, you've got to eliminate whining. You just have to. You have to say, I will not do this anymore. And every time the thought comes up, just say, I'm not going to do it. Whining doesn't change anything. Whining just makes you feel worse and worse. That's what it does. So what do? Because you're feeling bad, you now tap into that dark side of yourself, which is, I just feel a need to eat, or I feel a need to shop, or I just need to buy something so I can feel better. Follow what I'm saying? This is all understandable because humans do this, which is why I say keep your thoughts positive, be a get-it-done person rather than a whining and complaining person. For real, nobody wants to hear it. And sadly, nobody really cares because they've got a plate full of stuff themselves to deal with. So my challenge to all of you is on this part 1 of the boot camp is change your mindset. Look at how you're thinking. Look at how money works. This is simplistic, but like I said, you can go into YouTube and a lot of my other shows, and I've gone into great depth on all of these. But for 24-25, you better have a plan. You need to set goals. You need to be prepared to execute timetables. And whining should have no space in your life. It should not. In fact, to get rid of whining, exercise, walk, really walk every day. Just do it, walk. Why? It will trigger the positivity in you. It will. Now, I got 2 other points, and we're going to run out of time for this first segment, which is important. And that is the treachery of debt. When I gave you those stats early on, let me go back and see if I can find that again, because it's just awful. Debt, we have $1.7 trillion in credit card debt, according to the Fed. And the numbers aren't getting better, they're getting worse. So what's the deal with debt? Well, the deal is, how do I get out of debt? What do I do? And the first thing I will say to you is that with all of the new notifications by the retail companies like Nordstrom's and Dillard's and Macy's, and I would say Big Lot, but they're in bankruptcy, and other. Listen, interest rates on those cards are now up to 34.99% per year. You better really like that dress, or you better really like those shoes if you're willing to put them on a piece of plastic. Because at that interest rate, madam or sir, you're going to be stuck. Remember I said to you early on that total household debt in the United States is in excess of $17.9 trillion. Right. And that credit card debt for the first quarter, which was measured by the Federal Reserve of New York, over $1 trillion. Do the math. 34.99, $1 trillion. I mean, I predict bankruptcies are going to hit the roof. People can't do it. They can't do it. They've lost the will to fight. Now let me tell you the dark side of debt, because you might as well know. With all these companies selling their credit card paper to the big boy banks, American Express, J.P. Morgan, Citibank, you're like, wow, These guys are seasoned scalpers. They got whole collection departments whose goal is to get their money. So, you may have had kind behavior when you were dealing with the smaller companies. But the minute you shift to a bank, big bank, with a full department called collection, you are going to descend into an experience that is dreadful. I would have to say, in terms of your budget, which we'll deal in the next show, the highest priority you better have is paying off your debt, because they are trained in the art of extracting money from delinquent payees. It's not payees, payors. They're masters. Remember, they repo houses, boats, cars, furniture. Yeah, they really know how to do this. And they know how to take your stuff. And you can say, but, and I will tell you, don't ever tell a banker in collections, but you don't understand. Because you're talking to an alien form of life. Did I say it? You're talking to an alien form of life. It's horrible. And so my recommendation is, do not spend, and we're getting ready to come on to Christmas. We're dealing with Halloween. Why anybody want to pay money for a skeleton? I don't know. But I will tell you, that's crazy. But we're moving into Christmas. And I'm going to suggest to all of you all that going into debt to make Billy happy is not going to work for you. Period. When they start hounding you, if you've got money that's pre-budgeted, then do it. But if you're going to use a piece of plastic to finance your extreme behavior around spending, you're going to be in a binky farm, because they're going to run you into one. And then they're going to put a lien, and they're still going to get their money. Okay? Many of you are not aware that denial is not the answer. You can't do it. It's called the treachery of debt. And then finally, closing out this segment, I'm going to talk about why the United States of America does not need gold bullion to pay our bills. And I'm going to tell you who is the gold. The gold in the United States is us, the working population. You say, how are we the gold? Because you pay taxes out of every check, or estimated taxes if you're self-employed, or real estate taxes just because you have a house you own. But your ability to predictably and legally pay taxes mean that the American consumer, the working class American, is the gold. So when I tell people the IRS most certainly is going to put you in jail if you don't pay taxes, because taxes keep this country going, particularly when it comes to our national debt, which is outrageous. Outrageous. But how does it get paid? It gets paid through the taxing ability of the Internal Revenue Service and its ability to tax you because you are the gold. The ability of over 200 plus million Americans to pay taxes makes us the star on top of a dunghill. Yep, all starving poor people, but you better pay your taxes. You better put your kids to work. You better do something, but you better pay your taxes. If you do not understand the taxation system and why the rich pay very little, it's a numbers thing. The numbers are in population density. The largest number of working people are working people. And that money is budgeted and predicted how it will be allocated. First and highest priority is paying on the debt. You cannot default on debt. They'll starve you. You can't. You got to pay the debt. So the second largest allocation is, of course, our defense. You got to protect our country. You got to protect other countries too. People are like, why are we over in Ukraine? And I said, because we are a part of NATO. And in fact, we're the largest contributing part of NATO. And NATO is involved with Ukraine because of border issues. Want to know more? Google. Why is the U.S. involved with Ukraine? Google. Ask Siri. Google. And you will be amazed. And you will grow up very quickly, I might add, when you understand why the United States is in bed with so many of these countries and why we keep printing money for them. Because I'm going to tell you, there's an old adage that I learned many, many years ago. Better to be with the enemy you know than the enemy you don't. So now you know why we keep funneling our money. And by the way, they didn't ask us whether we consented or not, because this is all about safety and security in our country. We've never had a major blowout in the United States, aside from Hawaii and Pearl Harbor. We've not had to look at instability and straight out anarchy in our country, because our people work, take care of their families, and pay their taxes. That's something for you to think about as we close out today's part 1 of Financial Survival Bootcamp. Our next segment, we're going to be talking about controlling your spending, legacy, and those side gigs if I have enough time. There are so many smart kids. It's just amazing. I mean, for real. We thought in our generation that there were smart kids, but I'm telling you, this generation of young people is off the chart. And it wouldn't matter if you didn't want to bring in critical theory or not back in the schools, because from the age of 3, they're looking at cell phones and reading everything anyway. So that's my take. Stay tuned for part 2 of Financial Survival Bootcamp. I'm Michelle Graves, your host. As always, delighted to be able to share information and hope you're learning a few things. You take care. Bye-bye.